Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending upon the time of day for you. Thank you for taking the time to spend a few minutes with me. I do hope you find the experience entertaining as well as educational. Before I begin, let me tell you a little about myself. Now, when I give speeches, this part is usually done by another person who introduces me. So you'll pardon me if this sounds a bit pretentious, but my advisors have told me this is what I should say. My name is John Fall. I'm a senior global executive management leadership consultant, seminar workshop facilitator, speaker, and author. I have over 4 decades of experience with organizations ranging in size from a few hundred employees to hundreds of thousands worldwide. My clients include Honda, Toyota, General Motors, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, Royal Dutch Shell, Australian Teleservices Association, IBM, Lockheed Martin, ESI International, Computer Task Group, San Miguel, and numerous small and mid-sized enterprises. My industry experience includes automotive, financial services, oil and gas, healthcare, employee benefits, mortgage banking, manufacturing, distribution, construction, real estate, insurance, and many others. My consulting engagements, predominantly initiated by client referrals, have taken me throughout North America and Asia Pacific, including Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and Singapore, and have involved vendor negotiations and management of client employees, consultants, and offshore resources. I'm a certified project management professional, better known as PMP, former director of the Orange County, California, U.S. chapter of the Independent Computer Consultants Association, and author of Using Information as a Resource, published in Mortgage Banking Magazine, as well as Living with a Fast Idiot, the Executive's Guide to Computers, that was used by Arthur Andersen and Company's introductory course on computers. I created and conducted a seminar workshop, How to Select and Install Information Technology, a Management Perspective, for the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans Automation Institute in Palm Springs, California in the U.S., and a workshop entitled How to Implement an E-Strategy for the Australian Teleservices Association in Sydney, Australia. It delivered real-life strategies and the pitfalls of E-strategy implementation for this organization whose members are contact center managers and team members. The workshop included web integration techniques and department organization strategies. I also developed and addressed a speech to high school students, What's Your Dream?, at the De La Salle College of St. Benilde Choose IT, Discover and Learn Your Future conference in Manila in the Philippines. I'm listed in Who's Who in the World, Who's Who in America, Who's Who in Finance and Industry, Who's Who in Finance and Business, Who's Who in Emerging Leaders in America, and Who's Who in the West. This speech is part of my Fall's Inspirational Kick-Off Speeches, a collection of 6 short inspirational speeches designed to kick off an annual planning meeting, team building event, corporate reorganization introduction, or any meeting that could use a refreshing start. This speech is called You Don't Have to Be Famous. The other speeches in the collection are The Mirror Test, Do You Know Who You Are? It's Not About You, It's Never Too Late, and Terry Sabato's Maximizing Academic Performance, MAP, seminars. I also offer the Leadership Insights series, a collection of 6 workshops, keynote addresses on leadership, based upon my decades of experience as a senior global executive management leadership consultant, seminar workshop facilitator, speaker, and author. The workshop's keynote addresses are titled, "What Can I Do?" Leadership Myths and Musts, Leadership Lessons from Entrepreneurs, Leadership Lessons from Everyday Life, The Pace of Leadership, and More Leadership Lessons. And now, here's You Don't Have to Be Famous. I can't tell you the number of people I've met in my consulting who have no animation when they talk about their work, but who light up when I ask them what they're really passionate about. Does this ring a bell with you? Do you know someone like this? Perhaps yourself? Every year, cable network news, CNN, asks people to submit candidates for ordinary people that have made a difference in the world because they took something they were passionate about and turned it into action. CNN calls them heroes, and I think you will too after I share with you the story of a person who was among the top 10 heroes in 2016. You'll hear the story of Georgie Smith, a designer who started her nonprofit, A Sense of Home, after realizing kids who aged out of the foster care system often end up living in squalor. She decided to help by lending her interior design skills for free. And on a more personal note, you'll hear a story of how my wife and I decided to learn how to play golf, and the surprising lessons about life we learned from the experience. Here's some ideas for you that might help you as you begin to think about your passions and what you're going to do about them. First, immediately stop thinking about how you aren't famous enough, and instead start thinking about how you're going to make a difference in the world. Second, develop and write down a list of everything you're passionate about and what you're going to do about it. And finally, remember, you don't have to start with a big idea. You can start small and learn as you go along until you're doing something big enough to make a difference. And now, for the story about the 2016 hero, Georgie Smith, and what she's done for foster children. Georgie Smith was working as a designer and chef in Los Angeles when a young man named Barry sought her out. He was 23 years old, living on his own after growing up in the foster care system. I went to see him living in his apartment amongst black garbage bags, Smith said. It was unacceptable. I immediately thought of my nephew, who was around the same age, and I did what I would do for him. Los Angeles County has the largest foster youth population in the United States. At 18 to 21 years old, they age out of the system, often with no family, financial, or community support. And the odds are stacked against them. Statistics show that many former foster youth will experience homelessness, poverty, or incarceration, along with higher rates of suicide, teen pregnancy, and drug addiction. They're out on their own, said Smith, 47. They finally get to that amazing place of having their own space, and then they're sleeping on the floor. In 2014, Smith gathered a team of volunteers, collected donated furniture and household items, and transformed Barry's makeshift living space into a real home. The experience led Smith to start A Sense of Home. The nonprofit has since created comfortable living spaces for 130 young people who have aged out of the system. These kids have such resilience and are so inspiring. They are so incredibly positive and hopeful, Smith said. I just feel it's incumbent upon us, the community, to be their village. If you do want to learn more about Georgie Smith, as well as other CNN heroes, go to the CNN website where you'll find the stories complete with pictures and video. And now, before I finish, here's the story I promised you earlier. It's a story about when my wife and I took golf lessons, thinking we might change from tennis to golf since we were going to be living within walking distance from the first tee of the golf course. The story is titled Just Hit Another Ball and is taken from my book, And Then There Were Stories, Lessons from a Lifetime of Leadership. The book is available on Amazon.com in both print and electronic Kindle editions. Since my wife and I were getting on in years, that's a euphemism for getting old in case you haven't heard the expression, we decided we'd better find something besides tennis to keep us occupied and fit when we retired. We liked to watch golf on television and decided we'd try our hand at it. We had no idea what we were in for. For those of you who play, our hats are off to you. And for those of you who don't and would like a lesson in humility, I suggest you try it. For something that looks simple when the professionals do it on television, it's an unbelievably complicated sport. We tried first to get some books and hit some balls at the driving range. And while the books we found worked for us later, they were too complicated to help much at the beginning. So we decided to go to a place where they sold golf clubs and see what we could pick up there. We were lucky enough to go the same day that the owner, Roger, a former golf professional, was there. He watched us hit a few balls with one of his clubs, and then he said in his mild-mannered way, "I think I can help you." As you might imagine, there's never been more of an understatement. If anyone needed help, it was us. Roger started us with the basics: how to grip the club, how to line up the ball, where to place your feet, and how to swing. Fortunately, Roger was a very patient man. And my wife is a natural athlete, so she started to catch on much earlier than I did, which meant Roger could save his patience mostly for me. Roger first let me watch how he hit the ball. Then he put me in front of a mirror so I could see how it looked in comparison when I got set up and swung the club. It took a while before my swing began to even remotely resemble the way Roger's looked. Then I tried to hit a ball. We were at a driving range near Hollywood, California in the U.S., so fortunately people were more distracted by the celebrities that practiced there than my bad attempts at hitting the golf ball. Until I got a little better, it was dangerous to be too close to me, because when I tried to hit the ball straight, it would sometimes go at almost right angles. I'm not sure who needed more patience, Roger, my wife, or me. I was so bad that when I started my lesson with Roger, my wife found somewhere else to be, as far away from us as she could go. But nothing fazed Roger. He would sit on a stool in front of me. He was approaching 90 years, and while still very spry and capable, he needed to sit while he placed balls on the practice tee, one after another, for me to hit. And when my frustration would begin to rise, Roger would look at me, smile, and say, "John, this is a very difficult game. But eventually you'll start to catch on. Until you do, just hit another ball. And keep doing that until finally things will start to work out." It has taken an extremely long time. Think in terms of years or decades instead of months. But even though I'm not ready to enter any tournaments, and I rarely keep score, I can now play well enough to walk the course a few times a week with my wife and enjoy the exercise. And every once in a while I'll get lucky and hit the ball, and sometimes even make a par on an easy hole. But every time I make a particularly bad shot, I remember Roger, and I remember his advice: just hit another ball. It keeps the blood pressure down and makes the game enjoyable, even when I don't do well. The advice, of course, works for almost everything in life. Try it the next time you find yourself in a difficult and frustrating spot. It'll help you more than you might think. And thanks for letting me spend some time with you and to share my stories. If I left you learning for more, send me an email at jrfall jrfall@yahoo.com, and I'll send you some information about the Leadership Insight series that I mentioned earlier. The Leadership Insight series is a collection of 6 workshops, keynote addresses based upon my book, and then there were stories, lessons from a lifetime of leadership. The book is available on Amazon.com in print and electronic Kindle editions. One of the seminars, Leadership Lessons from Everyday Life, includes stories behind the phrases, "Next time try working a little smarter," "Now let's put it all together," "Don't stop to admire your serve," and the story you heard today, "Just hit another ball." In the Leadership Lessons from Everyday Life workshop, the stories are interspersed with quotes from Dilbert, John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, Mahatma Gandhi, the preeminent leader of Indian nationalism in British-ruled India, who, employing nonviolent civil disobedience, led India to independence and inspired movements for nonviolence, civil rights, and freedom all across the world, as well as Winston Churchill. He was the Prime Minister of England during World War II. And Yogi Berra, the legendary baseball catcher, member of the U.S. Major League Baseball Hall of Fame and coach of the New York Yankees baseball team, known for his yogiisms, as well as Nelson Mandela, South African anti-apartheid activist, revolutionary, and politician, who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999, the first to be elected in a fully representative multiracial election. The other workshops include What Can I Do?, Leadership Myths and Musts, Leadership Lessons from Entrepreneurs, The Pace of Leadership, and finally, More Leadership Lessons. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed the stories and will not only learn some of the lessons yourself, but pass them on to your colleagues, because knowledge is one of the few things that increases when it is shared.